Were the shepherds at Jesus' birth adult men?
In ancient times, most shepherds were actually kids and teenagers, both boys and girls. We have examples of this in the Bible in David, Rachel, Joseph, Zipporah, and her sisters. There were also nomadic sheep herders like Abraham, who traveled around with his entire extended family in tents with probably thousands of animals. Luke doesn't actually specify the gender or the age of the shepherds in the story of the birth of Jesus, but he does give us clues about the shepherds by saying that they were out in the fields nearby Bethlehem. Families in settled communities like Bethlehem would form flocks out of multiple families' animals. Say your family has 4 sheep and my family has a few, and our neighbor on the left has 5 and our neighbor on the right has a few more, and so on. Then they would assign a kid or kids to be the shepherds of that flock from these families. These were kids who were old enough to shepherd and yet still unmarried and unoccupied by adult work. The kids would normally take the animals out during the day and feed and water them and then come back into the town for the night. Animals were much of your wealth and security in the ancient world, and the animals were kept inside the house for their safety from predators and thieves, and a nice side effect was that they would keep the house warm in cold weather. Now back to the point that the shepherds were in the fields nearby Bethlehem. Some scholars have pointed out that local settled shepherds were only staying out in the fields nearby their town around the time of harvest when there was extra food available for all the flocks. After the harvest, which was usually around late summertime, the people who gathered the leftovers would come through the fields, and that's called gleaning, and then shepherds were allowed to bring their animals into the fields and make sure that every last morsel of food was eaten and used. So this also indicates that the shepherds were likely local settled shepherds. So we see that it's actually historically very plausible that the shepherds who were the first to hear the news of Jesus' birth were kids and could have been both boys and girls. So that's the historical lowdown on shepherds and why the shepherds in the Forgotten Nativity, a historically honest Christmas story, are kids. If you'd like to learn more about what has shaped the Forgotten Nativity, you can find more resources at Honest Imagination. If you haven't already, order your copy and spread the word, and nurture lifelong faith in your kids with historically honest Bible stories.